Welcome back to Purposeful Thinking. Please remember to like, share, subscribe. As we go into today's video, that is biblical faith, the nature of biblical faith. We'll look at the different dimensions to faith and whence it strives. Let us go into today's video. Peace.
One tonight to our weekly Bible study. Last week we covered Hebrews chapter 10, and we left off at the end of chapter 10, and I decided to continue with chapter 11 and to let us have some discussion around faith, the nature of faith, and what faith looks like. But for us to really get to chapter 11, a lot of times teachers or even readers read chapter 11 as a standalone, not really seeing the connection or realizing the connection that chapter 11 actually has, or how it is tied to chapter 10. And I see preachers a lot of time, both on the TV and I see some inside of the churches of God, pick up this arrow of starting chapter 11 and then see the transitional time marker. Or here it's not even referencing really time, but it is just used as a connector. A connector of thoughts and ideas that was already expressed and is now used to tie what will be said now moving forward to that idea, where he used the word now. And I see preachers take this word, telling their congregants and individuals running around in church saying that they need a now faith. And that means they want things to happen now and mislead individuals and trick individuals, which is the opposite of what the writer is actually saying, because the message that the writer is actually presenting is that faith is not a momentary thing, but faith is lived out as a lifestyle. And I summarize it at New Life and coin the phrase that is often used. I coined this phrase that faith is behavior. And I say that because that's what the writer actually does in chapter 11 to show us that faith is not a momentary event or an action that one holds in a moment and then moves on. But faith is a lifestyle that is lived out and is best expressed when circumstances becomes most visible, when circumstances adversely affects us. And he does this by laying out the argument in chapter 10, because it seems to us, it is evident from what he actually said in chapter 10, that the brethren, the Hebrew brethren that he wrote to, because he was in Italy at the time and he's writing to a Hebrew group of believers, a Jewish group of believers, and that is why the Old Testament looms so prominent in the book of Hebrews, and the sacrificial system and the tabernacle and the Levitical order. And he quotes frequently from the Old Testament in a beautiful way, in a classical Jewish way, where we are used to seeing in other Jewish literature. But what he does is he's saying to the brethren that you are going through persecution and you have obeyed God until this point, but things is coming up against you that is adverse, and all that obedience that you have demonstrated in times past, it seems to me that you want to give up that obedience now because your circumstances seems in your sight to becoming worse. Oh, we know that he's saying that. Verse 32, He said, but recall the former days in which after you were illuminated, you endured a great struggle. So they had some difficulties in times past, but it seems to me that it is becoming worse and they want to give up and throw in the towel. And he's saying, no, that obedience that you have displayed in times past counts for something. That obedience that you have displayed in times past, it is building up to something. It is actually deposits you have made in your bank of obedience and faith before God. Don't allow those deposits to go down the drain. Most of you are from Jamaica. I don't know if you can recall and remember Century Bank in Jamaica that used to exist, that a whole lot of individuals had their money and their life savings in. Some had millions. And the late Edward Seago borrowed 17 million US dollars from the bank and did not pay back that 17 million US dollars. And Omar Davis and others on the other side found out that he borrowed this amount of money from the bank and went in on the bank and applied pressure. And PJ's answer, not PJ, Edward Seago's answer was that he never actually remembered that he borrowed the money. 17 million US dollars. And you don't remember that you borrowed, and this is in the 90s. So 17 million US dollars is no joke when it come on to money, because even today, 17 million US dollars is a lot of money. And he said he never remembered. And the bank closed. All the people and everyone that had their life saving and have all kind of money lost it. It was gone. Wiped out. So it is here, the writer of Hebrews is telling the brethren, don't let those deposits of obedience that you have displayed in great struggle with suffering, you walk away from it now because you feel like your circumstances is intensifying, and as a result, you want to give up. Because he said, partly whilst you were made a spectacle, both by reproaches, meaning you were scorned, you were ridiculed in public, the spectacle meaning you were on display. And you went through tribulations, and partly whilst you became companions, you were identified with those who were treated in such a way. He said, you actually, when I was in prison, you actually identified with me and you sorry for me because they had compassion. The word compassion means to be in passion with. To be in, the word passion means suffering. The word passion actually, that is why they talk about the passion of the Christ. The word passion, the Latin term, means to suffer. So, and the word com, the C-O-M at the front is from the Latin preposition, or what we would call, not even preposition. It means, not preposition. A preposition show position. It means with, as I tell you all the time. So compassion means to identify or to suffer with, which the Latin term is the equivalent of the Greek word pathos, where we get the word pathetic, which means we usually use that word pathetic to mean foolish, but the word pathetic in its original context means one that is suffering. So that the writer here is saying, you identify with me as a fellow sufferer. They took away your goods, and you joyfully accepted the plunder, the stealing and the taking away, because you saw it as an identifier with Christ and with all those who have suffered. But now you want to give up. You want to give up. Therefore, and then he's warning them in verse 35, and this is where his argument is going to be linked to chapter 10, because he's going to, in chapter 11, he's going to show that what they are enduring is actually the life of faith that all saints have lived. A life of suffering and a life of endurance, a life of not compromising and not giving up, because in the back of your mind, or the forefront of our mind, is knowing that what we are enduring now is nothing to be compared with the glory, as Paul said, that shall be revealed. Knowing that what we are enduring now must never outweigh the glory that is to come. And he's telling them, therefore, do not cast away your confidence. Don't become discouraged. Don't give up. Sometimes our circumstances push us to the point where we want to give up. Push us to the point where we want to throw in the towel. We have been doing good, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a snowball hits us, and we forget all that we have suffered and endured before and give up, because we believe that, no, this is one but too much. That is where the church group here was. They wanted to give up. And the writer had to endure and said, for you have need of patience, endurance. That's what patience means. The word patience implies suffering. So when we say that we need patience, what we are actually saying is that we want to develop that character where when hardship or suffering comes our way, we are able to endure it. That's what the word suffering means. The word suffering comes from the word upir, which means under in Greek, and the word meno, which means to remain and wait. So opomone, which is from the word mono, is the word patient, which means to abide under adverse circumstances and to remain under it. So when you have patience, it means that you have the ability to cope and to deal with circumstances or situations that are not favorable to you and I. That's what the word patience really means. Upir means under. Under, meno means to wait. Upir meno, to abide under, to wait under. So when we say, and that's what endurance is. Endurance means that you are going against the tide, but you are pushing yourself. We are pushing ourselves to cover what is required of us. And that's what the writer is saying here. So that after you have done the will of God, you might receive the promise. Sometimes we have obeyed God in the past and is waiting on the reward of what we did, and we throw it away because we go and do stuff that we shouldn't have done, and it just wipe out all that we did. Give away. It's like we work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Are we supposed to get pay Friday? But if you get fired, you can't get any pay. Because sometimes you get fired without pay. And you could wait until Friday, you get your pay and then you leave, but you get upset and leave Thursday and you don't get any pay. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that you should be paid for, you cancel it out because you never wait until Friday. And the terms of your employment says that if you are fired, the very time that you are fired, you will not get any pay. And that's what the writer is saying here to them. You have need of patience, and after you have done the will of God, you might receive the promise. You have already done it, but now you are going through adversity. But what he does here is to tell them that what you are going through requires faith. patience and faith, endurance. For you have need of patience, you have need of endurance. But faith must be coupled with patience, and patience must be coupled with faith. And he told them that the text has told us that the lifestyle of the righteous, because the word just means righteous, same word, same root word, dikaiosune, which means righteousness, same word translate just. The writer is saying, you have need of patience. After you have done the will of God, you might receive the promise. The rules of the game, and I want to drive home this concept to us until we get it, because we need to understand it, and if we understand it, we will be successful. The rules of the game is the just must live by faith. That's how the just lives. But hearing the word faith and believe that it is just a cognitive, a mindset, a brain thinking, and outside of the thinking, that's it. Just say, oh, I believe. The writer is allowing them to know that no, faith is deeper than that. Faith is only demonstrated and realized through our behavior and how we live. It is our lifestyle that shows that we have faith. And the scripture already prophesied that the just shall live by faith. But he goes on to clarify for them what that word really means. He isolates the word faith because to be righteous is clearly known and understood, is to do right doing and to behave a certain way. But some of us, as well as they, we just relegate faith to a mental process. But the writer here is showing that faith is actually not just a mental process, but faith is the introduction to the mental process of ideas and thoughts that should drive how we act. The just shall live by faith. So now he goes on to say, you understand what it means to be just, but clearly you don't understand what it means to have faith. That is why he started off chapter 11 by saying, now faith is.